Hey guys, DJ Jackson, 8-time world champion, 2-time ADCC vet, Fight to Win champion, Copa Podio champion, 72-time Naga champion, 89-time Grappler's Quest champion, and here to talk to you today about the importance of competing. Competing in Jiu-Jitsu is one of the most important things because that's where we get to test our skills and our abilities against other people who are trying to rip our head off. In the gym, a lot of times things get lost, and like over the years, I feel like the importance of competition has gone down a lot. I remember being a blue belt and competing 2 to 3 times per month, like 2 times on a slow month, 3 times if we could, just getting up, traveling to each and every possible tournament we could get to. And the reason that competing is so important is because we get to get a completely different look that we get in the gym. We get to we get to compete against people who are actually trying to do harm to us. So we get a better view, a better gauge of our jiu-jitsu. And so when we compete, the most important thing that we need to do is record all of our matches. If we go to compete and we don't record our matches, it's almost not worth it because we don't get to learn from our mistakes the same way we get to learn from our mistakes if you have it on video, if you have it on camera. You can get your coach, you can get the upper belts in your team, you can sit down and look through, you can message me and sit down and look through and find out exactly what you did wrong, exactly how to improve. But a lot of times we compete, we're so excited about competition, but then we don't record our matches. So we have to compete as much as possible, but we also need to record our matches when we compete. I don't know when the thought changed. Like a lot of times I hear people talking about, oh, that tournament's too small, this tournament's too small. And that is completely irrelevant. Like as long as you can get a few good matches versus people who are not your teammates, it's worth it. And so I remember when I would train, we would go and compete. Our entire Metal Chaser team, me, Andres, Keenan, like everyone would get up, JT Torres, we'd all go to the Grappler's Quest. There was no, oh, this guy's too good to compete in that tournament, so just we're gonna go. No, all of us would go. And a lot of times we'd all close the division out together. I remember having some really fun matches with some of my teammates in the finals because we don't always close divisions out. We don't really do that, especially if there are people watching, there are people there. We'll just go out and have fun and just fight each other. And so that helped build our team, our progression up so much faster than if we just train in the gym over and over and over again and we're dealing with the same person. And so we need to compete because we need to, one, see what techniques are working, see what we need to fix, see our flaws, and also be able to improve on everything that we're doing wrong in the gym. We can make sure, like if I have a problem breaking a particular grip in the competition, I can make sure that I focus on always breaking this grip. The second someone puts their hand on my collar, I break it right away. And then that is one of the best ways to improve. Abraham Lincoln said, lessons not learned in blood are soon forgotten. And that doesn't mean you have to bleed to learn a lesson, even though if you bleed to learn a lesson, you're really gonna hold that in. But for instance, at the Pan Am Championship, notice I didn't say that I was a Pan Am champion because I'm not. I've never won Pan Ams. I was in the finals of Pan Ams when I was a purple belt, and I was winning the entire match. Like did great the whole tournament, was in the finals, started feeling myself, got like entirely too much, put my hands down, standing in front of this guy, Will Durkee. He grabs my gi, pulls me down, shoots a good double. I turn away. He jumps on my back. I put my back on the mat. Then he ends up scoring 2 points. And I've never won a Pan Am title since then. But losing that match has forced me to be ice cold in the other competitions, because I don't even really like talking about this, but I will for you guys. I would cry like a baby. Like, it was bad. Like, I was like, not on the mat, never on the mat. I held it together, got off the mat, went back behind the bleachers and let it out, man. I worked so hard to win that Pan Am championship. I worked so hard when I was a lower belt for all the tournaments I competed in. And I gave it away. I gave this guy the match. I didn't just give it, he took it. Like, he did a great thing to win the match. But if I'd have just kept my hands up, protecting myself like we always do, we have a rule in our team. If we're grid fighting, someone puts their hands down, everyone that belt and below has to do push-ups. I've done hundreds of push-ups, thousands, hundreds of thousands of push-ups, because people were putting their hands down in the gym. And then I did it at the biggest tournament that I had been to up to that point. And it hurt. It hurt to lose that match. But losing that match, I didn't make mistakes like that at the World Championships. I didn't make mistakes like that. When I traveled to Brazil and fought in the Copa Podio, I didn't make mistakes like that. And it really helped me. It really grinded the ability to not make mistakes into my head, because I remember that feeling. Like, I lost that match. Like, that's why competing is so important. I lost that match, and I remember that feeling vividly. Like, to this day, I remember how much it hurt to be to do all that work before the tournament, all that preparation, being completely ready, being good enough to win a division, and then falling short because of something that I did wrong. So that was a very important thing in my progress. And also, for everyone else, everyone has moments like that. Whether you win or lose, you can always learn something. And I honestly think sometimes if you're making a ton of mistakes in a fight or a jiu-jitsu match and you end up winning, that's not always good, because then you're going to keep making those mistakes. But when you're forced to pay, you end up losing a match because of a mistake that you made, it sits with you so much deeper than if you lose to a better person. If you lose to a better person, okay, we go back to the gym, we figure out how to improve our own skills. But when we lose to ourselves, it hurts, because we prepare properly, we do so much work to get ready to compete, and then we just end up giving it away. You know, it's like, what did you learn? What did you learn when you fought at the Pan Ams? Nothing. I already knew to keep my hands up. Like, I didn't learn to keep my hands up. Like, I already knew that, but it drove that message in. And so, something we always say, there's nothing wrong with making mistakes, as long as you fix the mistake and don't make that same mistake again. I absolutely never, for my entire career after that match at Purple Belt, and I was 10 years ago, absolutely never put my hands down in front of a competitor like that again. Or when I did, it was because I was setting something particular up. But allowing him to do that, especially when I was winning the entire match, at the very end of the match, was something that it hurt deeply. And we need to go through that in order to become the best competitors we can be. Like, you're gonna lose at some point. If you win every tournament you go to at the beginning, you're gonna take some knocks at the end. Once you become a black belt, like, everyone loses. No one just completely wins all throughout their career, except for Teddy, but most, and Jacare, and Hadra. But most of us regular people, most of us have to take those knocks. It's the only way to improve. So we have to make sure that there's nothing wrong with making mistakes, as long as we fix the mistake and don't make the same mistake again. Like, I learned most of the major lessons that I use to this day in competition. Like, I was a blue belt fighting at a grappler's quest. I remember the guy, a Russian guy from the school K Dojo, Ozzy D. I forget how to say his last name, but Ozzy D. He's still a professional fighter, and we still talk from time to time. And he's we fought 5 times. He beat me 3. I beat him twice, but all at blue belt and blue and purple belt. And it's just something we would always joke about fighting again later, joke about getting that next match on. But man, he was a really good competitor. But the first time we fought in the finals of our division at a locals grappler's quest in front of my friends, my family, he put me in the heel hook, just a regular. He reaped, he turned, he put me in the heel hook, and I didn't fully understand what a heel hook was. You know, like in training, we catch and release. We don't actually crank the heel hook at all. So he grabbed my heel and I screamed tap. And then he didn't let go, not because he's a bad guy, but because his momentum was carrying him. And so I'm screaming tap. He didn't let go right away. Another full second and a half, maybe even 2 seconds passed as he's turning and reaping and pulling my leg, and nothing happened to my leg. And so I realized I was being soft as baby cotton. I was so upset at myself for tapping before I needed to tap in the finals of a division that my father, my grandfather, my mother, they're all there watching. But we ended up fighting again that same tournament in the finals of the absolute division, and same thing happened. He reaped, he put me in a heel hook, he turned, and this time I was just like, nope, I'm not tapping, not gonna tap. You didn't let go the first time right away, and my leg didn't explode. We're gonna see what happens. And I ended up getting out and passed his guard, ended up winning that match. And because of that, I've never been heel hooked in competition again. We train leg locks. My instructor is known as the king of leg locks in Brazil. We train leg locks a lot. Like, he was Ryan Hall's instructor. He taught Ryan Hall the leg locks that Ryan Hall does. And his leg locks, because of his Sambo background, are absolutely amazing. Like, so everyone on our team is very good with leg locks. So we train leg locks a lot. I don't particularly use them in my game except when I need to, but that doesn't mean we're not proficient in this. And because of that competition, because I was able to see that I had a little bit extra flexibility, more flexibility than most people had, now I was able to fight differently when I fought everyone else. When I fought Gary Tonin in competition, he put me in heel hooks and everyone in the New York crowd is screaming like, the match is over, And I was just like, guys, we've been here before. And I just turn, I get out, I escape, and I continue to pass the guard, continue to work, continue to fight. But just like that, me, Gary Tonin, Gordon Ryan, we fought 7 times. I fought Gordon 3 times when he was my size. I fought Gary 5 times, and we were fighting at local tournaments. We were fighting at Grappler's Quest and Nagas. It wasn't the world championships. To get better at jiu-jitsu, all top competitors are competing as much as possible. It's necessary to compete. You have to record those matches so you can fix the mistakes, but competing necessary. There's no one who is good at jiu-jitsu today who is too good for any tournament on the way up. I mean, of course there's going to be exceptions to that rule, but I really don't think so. Because if you love jiu-jitsu, you're going to want to compete as much as possible. I fought Bill Cooper, who was one of the trailblazers of American jiu-jitsu when I was a purple belt, and he was beating me silly for most of the match. And then he beat me so bad, he went for a leg lock, left his leg open. I grabbed an inverted heel hook, and I turned. I didn't even pop my hips and finish properly, but I was able to put enough torque on that he tapped. He's beating me so bad that when he tapped, the ref, who is the owner of Manto, the Manto Gi company, I forget his name right now, but I remember he owned that gi company. He looked at us, he's like, why y'all stop? Why'd you guys stop? And Bill, being the solid guy that he is, he looked up and he was just like, he got me. And everyone in the crowd started screaming and everyone was super excited. And for that match, it took a while for me to get that match on video because my teammates, I was getting beat so bad, they put the phone away. They're like, oh, DJ's not gonna want this. But no, we have to be able to fix the mistakes that we made. It doesn't matter how bad we lose. The only crime in losing badly is not fixing any of the mistakes you made. You have to improve, compete, fight, improve, get better. Even if it takes us 10 years, 12 years, 14 years to get to the level that we want to get to, we will get there as long as we keep improving. But if we don't record our matches, we don't fix our mistakes, we're never gonna be able to improve to the levels that we want to improve to. Another thing that makes competing so important is when we're training in the gym, we all learn the same moves at the same time. We all every gym has like their staples. Like our gym, smash half guard, Bravo choke, you know? And so in the gym, it got to the point where I couldn't Bravo choke anybody in the gym when I was a blue and purple belt because I was doing it so much, I drilled it so much, I got so good at it. And so we started working the defenses to it as well. So make sure no one in competition could do that to us. So everyone's framing properly, and it was really difficult to get to the Bravo choke for a while. And so there's a point where I was like, oh man, this doesn't really work. But then I would go to competition and finish everyone with a Bravo choke. So it doesn't matter what happens in the gym as long as we continue to improve, and we have to go to competition to get this more accurate gauge on what techniques work and what techniques don't work. Some of your teammates will just not like losing to you, so they'll study your game and they'll really, really make sure that they are able to beat you. And I don't think that's a good thing, even though it can be, because people who do that are very smart and it helps them adjust like on the fly, and they're able to break down other people's games as well. But I don't think you should study your teammates' games, but it's kind of natural. It's impossible to not do that. Like Mike Easton has an amazing guillotine. It's impossible for me. Like I don't shoot sloppy single legs on him ever, because if I do, I'm gonna get guillotined immediately. So it's not so much that we need to force ourselves in competition to see what is really gonna work for these major tournaments. We don't wanna go into the major tournaments and not know what our A game is, not know what our A techniques are, not know what our weaknesses are. If we have a weakness, we can avoid that position as long as we know what that weakness is. Like for instance, if you can't open a closed guard and no one in the gym plays closed guard, but you go to a local tournament, you go to Grappling Industries, and someone locks you in a closed guard and you can't get out, and it's 6 minutes. When we get to Worlds, you have to, with everything in your being, force yourself to not let someone jump closed guard on you, not let people put you in their closed guard. Because I know some people with closed guards that are so good that the only way out is to tap. Like closed guard is an extremely strong position when people use it properly. So we have to be able to know our weaknesses as well as focus on our strengths and develop our strengths in these tournaments. And like I said earlier, I don't know when the thought process changed about tournaments being like, this tournament's too local, this tournament, there's not going to be enough people there. Like, none of that matters. If you can go and get good matches with competitors around your skill level, even if you go to a tournament that's a local tournament, you tap everyone in 15 seconds. I know guys on our team, there's a purple belt named Andres Brunowskis, black belt, he trains at Atos now. But when he first trained at our team, he would literally do that. He would tap people so fast. It would be amazing. It was like, we would see him fight, we go, hey, let's go cheer on Andres. By the time we were walking there, it was like a running joke. By the time we got close to the match, the fight was already over. I'm like, we didn't waste our time even going over there anymore. But this kid was amazing. This guy, he's one of our main training partners. He's one of the reasons that I can personally deal with inverted guard and close guard and a lot of the funky guard positions, because he has a extremely funky guard. But in competition, he would tap people relentlessly. And so once he developed his game and he knew what his game was, he would just go and try to fly and triangle people. That's what his thing was. He'd fly and triangle people, fly and triangle people. He'd fly and triangle a guy, fall to the ground because the guy defended it, get back up, and fly and triangle again. And then once he was secure and he knew that he knew how to do that, then he would start working his wrestling. He would try to body lock people. He'd try to get to the body locks to do a body lock takedown. Was his best takedown at the time, probably still is. And he would just keep focusing on improving his jiu-jitsu, no matter what, no matter whether we master a technique or not, because we never actually truly master a technique, especially not at the lower level. We can always get better at a technique. It takes 10,000 reps to be a master at a technique, to master a technique, but we can always be better at a technique. There's always things we can do better until we actually have the understanding of it to do it perfectly. But when we have that understanding, then we can move on to focus on doing other techniques, other positions. And it's like I said before, in the gym is going to be like, he couldn't take many people down in the gym. He worked his wrestling. It's kind of comical, but he would fight hard, focus. He worked his wrestling, and he won no-gi worlds a couple times because he was able to develop his skills in these competitions, and he didn't care about losing in the gym. He'd get tapped in the gym, he didn't care. He'd hop right back up and be right back to fighting you. I mean, he had a really strong mindset for jiu-jitsu, and that's what we all need. So we have to be able to compete and ignore the noise. If we hear someone, like a teammate, griping and moaning, talking about, oh, don't do that tournament's too local, or that tournament's too small. Like, if that person hasn't accomplished the goals that you're trying to accomplish, there's no reason to listen to them. Like, but if he's your coach or someone on your team who's a world champion already, then maybe they'll have a point, and you then ask them why. Like, why do you say that? And it's definitely not gonna be because, like, oh, because you're not gonna get any matches. Like, maybe that's it. Maybe they're just gonna be no one in your weight class, and he already knows that. But if you can see the registration, see there's gonna be people for you to fight, go in there. I fought, even after I started getting paid to fight super fights, I would show up and do some local tournaments with our teammates just to work on some different things. And everyone's like, why are you here? And it's like, I'm here to get better at jiu-jitsu. Like, I record the matches, I'd pull guard, and I'd work on my leg lock entries, and just work on my leg lock entries and continue to work on those. And maybe nothing ever went like a ride, but if it did, I would have a lot of information to continue to get better. So it's important that we have to ignore the noise. Like, if I, who was already at that time 7 or 8 time black belt, no, I'm sorry, 2-time black belt no-gi world champion, can do a local tournament at Grappling Industries. Wasn't really local, because Grappling Industries does a really great tournament. They guarantee a lot of matches, and if they can't guarantee your matches, they give you your money back. I don't know if they give you your money back, but they move the registration to another tournament for you. Like, if you register and you don't get any matches, they'll move your registration to another tournament so that you can go and compete in the next tournament. And so, like, tournaments like that are really important. But if that tournament is not below me, I don't think it should be below any of us. We all need to be able to develop our skills to go. We need to fight people who aren't on our team. And it doesn't matter what the rule set is. In jiu-jitsu, the goal is to submit our opponent. So if the rule set is points, we have to focus on controlling the position on the way to submitting our opponents. But we still have to focus on controlling our positions. And if the tournament is submission only, even better. But we just need to focus on, still, we're gonna have to control our position on the way to on the way to submitting our opponents. Because if you can't get to dominant position, it's not easy to submit people in a submission-only tournament if you're just throwing up Hail Mary submissions, you're throwing up triangles with no real guard set up. We need to be able to control our position and look for submissions while we're controlling our position. And then if no submission presents itself, advance our position, control our grips until we can find a submission, and rinse and repeat. So it doesn't really matter the rule sets. Like, I despise EBI rules tournaments. I still do them because they're matches. They're still good matches. Like, you still get a lot of good fights. You get a lot of information, and there's nothing wrong with competing. And what's the worst that can happen? You lose, so what? If you lose, just make sure you fix the mistakes and you get better. I've had tons of great matches, and some of them were in EBI rules tournaments. Like, I despise the thought of letting someone take my back after I've dominated in an entire match. But at the end of the day, if we go 10 minutes and I haven't submitted you, then it is what it is. Those are the rules. But my job is to submit you anyway within the time limit. And I know that's a lot easier said than done, but especially if you're like me and my legs are short, my arms are short, like I can't body lock when I'm on the back. So EBI rules they're not congruent for my style. But I've still done great every time I fought in an EBI tournament. It's just sometimes in overtime I'll lose because of faster escapes. But you're still learning, you're still improving, you're still getting better at jiu-jitsu, and we're still getting one step closer to our end goals. So make sure we don't let other people's misconceptions, because a lot of people just don't know. They'll regurgitate what they hear someone else say. The two black belts will talk about, I'm not going to that crap. There'll be nowhere in there for me to fight. And then you're a blue belt and you hear a purple belt talking about not going to a competition because there's going to be no one there for you to fight. Like, no, that only applies to the highest level black belts in only specific divisions. But most of the time, if there's a tournament and you can see before, check the registration or message the tournament director, see if there's going to be people in your division. If you can get matches, that's a lot of information that we're going to need to improve our skills. Every single high-level competitor that has won world championships in jiu-jitsu has competed countless times. Like, you can't countless times. Like, my record on BJJ Heroes, for example, is ridiculous. Like, they have every single loss that I've ever had, they accurately, and not even a third of my wins at black belt. Like, I compete so much, and I don't know what the qualification is for specific tournaments, but the competitions that we do, we need that information. We need to go out. We need to fight. So it doesn't really matter. So don't look at what people will say unless they're your coach or they're people you respect. And then if they're your coach or people you respect, ask them for their opinion on it and say, hey, okay, it may not be good for you, but do you think it'd be good for me to go fight? Like, I want to work on this. I want to see if I can work on my butterfly guard, because I've been working on my butterfly guard in the gym. Every time I put someone in my butterfly guard, they defend right away, and I can't really hold the position because everyone's working on it, and everyone's butterfly guard defense is really good. And then you go to the competition, you use your butterfly guard, and you see if it works, or you decide whether you want to continue to progress with that or focus on something else. And also, we need to get information for the major tournaments before the major tournaments. We don't want to go into a major tournament with deficiencies in our game that we didn't see because no one at our gym plays worm guard. Like, if we don't know how to get out of worm guard, we want to learn that before we get to a major tournament. And so we can know to focus and drill the escapes to the worm guard. Some weight classes don't really have to do with worm guard. I think all of them do now. It used to be middle heavy and above. There was none of that. But now even the heavyweights play that stuff. So everyone has to know how to deal with that. But if you don't know if your escapes work, because no one in your gym plays that type of guard, then you need to go to competition. Hopefully you fight someone who plays worm guard, and then you can see. You can record, you have your camera set up, your girlfriend or your coach or your friend recording your match. Someone puts you on worm guard, you see if the escape worked. If it doesn't work, you see what you did wrong, you see how he got there, you see how to prevent him from getting there, and then we continue to progress to our highest level after that. So it's of ultra importance to compete as much as humanly possible. There's absolutely no reason, if our goals are to progress in jiu-jitsu, that we don't compete. It's even if we don't want to be a world champion per se, we just want to be as good as we possibly can be. We still need to compete. Like, I think everyone should compete in jiu-jitsu. And if you're older, maybe you don't have to compete as much as the younger guys compete, but you still should get out there and compete, because at the end of the day, you want to know that what you do works. That's why I think jiu-jitsu is the most important martial art there is. Like, people talk about, not really people, but there's a small group that thinks Krav Maga is a great self-defense. But how can you test it? There's no competition, there's no sparring, there's absolutely no way to test to see if this thing works until someone attacks you in the street, which isn't how you want to learn if your technique works. You want to know your technique works well before that. So God forbid we get into an altercation, we're able to defend ourselves properly. But if we don't have that skill set, if we don't focus on developing our jiu-jitsu, then if someone attacks us on the street, we're with our family, it's not, we want to make sure, we want to know with our whole heart that we're going to be able to defend ourselves. And when we know that, most of the time, the confidence you carry will prevent anyone from doing anything anyway. But that's another conversation. But compete as much as possible. Any tournament we get to, we have to compete. I remember me and my teammate Danny Mahoney would drive 3-4 hours right after work on Fridays to go weigh in at tournaments week after week after week. As many tournaments as we could get to, we would do. And that is a big reason on why our team is successful, because we went to tournaments, focused, made mistakes, didn't win all the tournaments by any stretch of the imagination. We lost a lot, but we came back, fixed the mistakes, and became better grapplers because of those tournaments. And everyone should compete as much as possible. So make sure you follow me on Instagram, Coach DJ Jackson, and keep on the lookout for the products that I'm going to be dropping soon.